Hello again, I'm back for another video. Sorry that I've been a bit inconsistent with the videos. I'm actually really keen to put out lots of new videos, but I've definitely underestimated how hard it is to find a time and a place to make them, so I'm going to keep trying to punch them out whenever I can. But today's topic is just something I've picked up quite recently probably, and something that I've seen around quite a lot of things like different sports card markets or stocks, or like cryptocurrency lately as well. And it's just something that I think is really applicable and really helpful when trying to decide what card is a good opportunity to buy. And it's good for assessing risk, and just if you've got two options and you're trying to make a decision, it can maybe help with that. So the theory is to not only look at the ceiling of a card, but to also look at the floor. And the best way to explain it is probably an example. So my example is Lance Franklin's draft pick signature card. Previously, I actually haven't been super hot on this card. I've always wanted it, but I've always chased the platinum draft pick first, and really kind of forgotten about the draft pick signature. That's probably mostly because it's out of 600, so I fell into the trap that I've already talked about, where I'm like, well, it's out of 600, so it's not super rare. Why would I want to get that over the platinum draft pick? But the draft pick signature is still a very significant card, I think, and something that's definitely worthwhile to have. But I think this is a perfect example of the floor and ceiling kind of principle. And that's the card goes for about $200 at the moment. And I would say the ceiling, once he kicks 1,000 goals, once he maybe retires, like, he's already a great of the game. It doesn't matter what he does at this point. And I think the sports card market's going to go up, especially for those kind of like GOAT, great, significant players. So I would say you can buy at 200. The ceiling of that card at the moment, I'd say it's probably going to spike a bit when he kicks 1,000 goals and then retires, maybe 250, 300. And then I think it's going to grow 5-10% a year on that. So I'd say maybe the ceiling is something like $1,000, and you might be looking at that in 5 years' time or something, 10 years' time. So that's the ceiling. I'd say, wow, that's the first thing you obviously look at when you're buying a card. You're like, will this go up in price? And that makes sense, because if you're looking at it as an investment, obviously you look at it just wanting the card at first. But if you're also trying to think of it as an investment kind of opportunity, then you think, is this card going to go up? But the second thing you also have to think is, how far can this card come down? Like, how much risk is attached to this card? So for the draft pick signature for Lance Franklin, like, literally how low can this card go? It's already at $200 for an all-time great, just a hugely influential forward or player in the competition, probably one of the best forwards of all time, if not the best forward of all time. How low can this card go in the future? And personally, I'd say $200 is really close to the level it can go. Like, it can't go much lower. Say he gets injured, doesn't kick his 1,000 goals, retires a bit early. It's a bit, a bit of a sad ending to his career, and the footy card market goes down maybe. All these things happen. This is the worst case scenario. I still think the card is going to be worth about $100. I can't see it going any lower. And if it does, I'm sure everyone's just going to snap them up, and then it's just going to increase from there. Because I know people like me and other people who have messaged me are really keen on these cards, and I don't think they're going to let these kind of cards slip for any lower than, say, like $100. And I think that's generous. I think it's actually going to be higher than that, but just for the purposes of the video, I'm going to say $100. So for that card, you've got the price at the moment, 200. You've got the ceiling price, we've given it at about 1,000, and the floor at 100. So you pretty much, I look at that card and go, well, I stand to gain maybe $800 long term. It could be more, could be less, obviously. That's just a ballpark estimate. And I stand to lose about $100 if everything goes wrong. So when you look at it that way, I think it's a pretty safe investment. And I think I've definitely been sleeping on this card a bit, because it's just very safe. Like, what's the worst can happen? You lose $100 and you have this great card that I'd want anyway. So that's 100 loss versus 800 profit. It just makes sense, like the risk versus reward. Another example is a card I showed last video, which is the Dangerfield Gold draft pick signature from 2008 Classic. That's his signature, numbered to 400. And I bought that for $74. And this is another case of like, how low can that card literally go? Like for Dangerfield, even if everything goes wrong, I highly doubt that card's going under $50. Like if it goes any lower than $50, people will just buy it bulk. Like I'll buy everyone that comes on eBay for under $50. So I think the risk of it going down lower, even lower than $70, say I bought it for like 75. Yeah, I just don't think there's a huge amount of risk attached. On the other hand, the ceiling, once again, it's probably not the highest ceiling because it's not his best card, the platinum draft pick, because that is the objective. He's a best objective rookie card. That will always attract the premium, and that will always be the highest card. But this will kind of follow the trajectory of that one. So say, I can definitely see that platinum draft pick one day being $1,000 card. I don't think that's a kind of overestimate or a crazy prediction. I think it's very reasonable that card's going to get to $1,000. So if that gets to 1,000, I think the gold version will probably be at about $150 to $200 at that point. So let's just say that's the ceiling. So you've got the asking price of $75 at the moment. That's what I paid. You've got the ceiling of $200, and you've got the floor of $50. So pretty much you're risking, the way I see it, you're risking $25 loss to get a possible $125 profit. So once again, the risk and reward is really kind of positive, and that when I look at it that way, it just makes me think, wow, I'm very happy and I feel very safe making this choice. Now, something to compare it to where I think the risk versus reward doesn't exactly add up is probably the hottest card in the market right now is the Dustin Martin Marquee out of 40 from the newest 2021 Prestige Footy Stars Prestige, and that's been going for about $2,000 on eBay at the moment. His jumper number went for $3,000, which I'm probably going to do another eBay expedition soon. I've been a bit slack with that, but yeah, I'll probably go into the sales more in that video. But for this video's purposes, they're selling for about $2,000. What's the ceiling for that card? Well, if everything goes right this year, say Dusty wins the Brownlow, say he wins the Norm Smith, they win the Premiership, everything goes perfectly, his cards will be absolutely through the roof. But can it go much higher than 2,000? Like the hype's already so high already. Yeah, it probably could. We're saying like we're speculating here. We're not saying it's gonna happen, but it's possible that card gets to $2,500 or it gets to $3,000. I think absolute max. I think it can get to $3,000 if everything goes right. And this is just a normal one. This isn't number one or his jumper number. This is a normal marquee. So say everything goes right, this is a $3,000 card. In comparison, the floor, I think, I've said it before, I think they're gonna keep printing low numbered Dusty cards. They will print them until people are sick of them. Like it's just such, when you got a player of that hype and that status, it's like a LeBron James kind of thing. The card makers got to make their money. Like they're gonna keep printing that because they know as soon as they put a low numbered Dusty in the set, it's gonna sell out instantly and people are gonna really want it. So yeah, I think they're gonna keep printing it. I think a kind of lower end release such as Footy Stars and Footy Stars Prestige is not really going to stack up against the more higher end, say like Supremacy or the kind of Brilliance or Dominance kind of sets. So let's say this card gets a bit forgotten, say Richmond don't do very well, Dusty gets injured, something like that. The floor of this card, I would say about probably $500. Like if you look in a couple of years, this card could very, very well be under $500 or $500. But even I'm going to be a bit generous because I don't want to be too biased. Everyone knows that, or everyone who watches the videos knows I'm a bit biased towards the more significant kind of rookie cards. So let's just say the floor is $1,000. So they're selling for $2,000 at the moment. They could, at the very best, get to $3,000, and at the floor, let's just say $1,000. But even being generous with the numbers, you're risking $1,000 to gain $1,000. So if you compare that to the Franklin, where you're risking 100 to gain 800, like the risk reward isn't really there. So if you're tossing up whether to buy, say like 10 Lance Franklin draft pick signatures, you wouldn't be able to find 10, but let's just say you could, and you got 10 draft pick signatures of Lance Franklin versus one Dusty Marquee. I think it's a pretty obvious choice, and yeah, it's definitely not something I came up with, this idea, but I've been hearing it around, and the more I hear it, the more it makes sense to me, and the more I've been applying it in the cards I buy. So I hope that was interesting or helped some people, and I'm gonna be back with the eBay expedition soon, and thanks for everyone to subscribing and checking in, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.